Welcome to the video lecture on the story A Pair of Mustachios by Mulk Raj Anand. Mulk Raj Anand, popularly known as India's Charles Dickens, is one of the greatest prose writers of modern Indian English literature. He was a master storyteller who crafted classic tales that depicted the nuances of societal struggle in all its stark detail. His fiction often focused on the poverty and despair of the downtrodden. Some of his major works are The Untouchable, which was published in 1935, Coolie in 1936, Two Leaves and a Bud in 1937, Across the Black Waters in 1939, and The Private Life of an Indian Prince, which was published in 1953. He was honored with the Padma Bhushan in 1968. Now we'll move on to a reading and analysis of the story. A Pair of Mustachios. There are various kinds of mustachios worn in my country to mark the boundaries between the various classes of people. Outsiders may think it stupid to lay down or rather to raise lines of demarcation of this kind, but we are notorious in the whole world for sticking to our cure-old conventions, rights and prejudices, even as the Chinese or the Americans, or for that matter, the English. And at any rate, some people may think it easier and more convenient to wear permanent boundary lines like mustachios, which only need a smear of grease to keep them bright and shiny, rather than to wear frock coats, striped trousers and top hats, which constantly need to be laundered and dry cleaned, and the maintenance of which is already leading to the bankruptcy of the European ruling classes. With them, clothes make the man, but to us, mustachios make the man. So we prefer the various styles of mustachios to mark the differences between the classes. And very unique and poetical symbols they are too. For instance, there is the famous lion mustache, the fearsome, upstanding symbol of that great order of resplendent Rajas, Maharajas, Nawabs and English army generals who are so well known for their devotion to the King Emperor. Then there is the tiger mustache, the uncanny, several-pointed mustache, worn by the unbending, unchanging survivals from the ranks of the feudal gentry who have nothing left but pride in their greatness and a few mementos of past glory, scrolls of honor granted by the former emperors, a few gold trinkets, heirlooms and bits of land. Next, there is the god mustache, a rather unsure brand, worn by the nouveau riche, the new commercial bourgeoisie and the shopkeeper class who somehow don't belong, an indifferent, thin little line of a mustache, worn so that its tips can be turned up or down as the occasion demands, a show of power to some coolie or humility to a prosperous client. There is the Charlie Chaplin mustache, worn by the lower middle class by clerks and professional men, a kind of half and half affair, deliberately designed as a compromise between the traditional full mustache and the clean-shaven curtain cut of the sahib and the barristers, because the babus are not sure whether the sahibs like them to keep mustachios at all. There is the sheep mustache of the coolie and the lower orders, the mouse mustache of the peasants, and so on. In fact, there are endless styles of mustachios, all appropriate to the wearers and indicative of the various orders, as rigorously adhered to as if they had all been patented by the government of India or had been sanctioned by special appointment with His Majesty the King or Her Majesty the Queen. And any poaching on the style of one class by members of another is resented, and the rising ratio of murders in my country is interpreted by certain authorities as being indicative of the increasing jealousy with which each class is guarding its rights and privileges in regard to the mark of the mustachio. Of course, the analysis of the expert is rather too abstract, and not all the murders can be traced to this cause. But certainly it is true that the preferences of the people in regard to their mustachios are causing a lot of trouble in our parts. For instance, there was a rumpus in my own village the other day about a pair of mustachios. As a prologue to the story, the author gives us a very humorous introduction to the wide array of mustachios found in the country. Mulk Raj Anand places the tradition of wearing mustachios as an integral part of the socio-cultural milieu of India. There are different kinds of mustachios that can be used as indicators of class and caste. Hence, Mustachios are not merely for aesthetic purposes but act as an integral part of one's societal identity. Mulk Raj Anand is perhaps poking fun at the various class and caste barriers that divided the nation. We'll continue with the text. It so happened that Seth Ramanand, the grocer and moneylender, who had been doing well out of the recent fall in the price of wheat by buying up whole crops cheap from the hard-pressed peasants and then selling grain at higher prices, took it into his head to twist the goat moustache integral to his order and position in society at the tips so that it looked nearly like a tiger moustache. Nobody seemed to mind very much because most of the mouse-moustached peasants in our village are beholden to the moneylender either because they owe him interest on a loan or an installment on a mortgage of jewellery or land. Besides, the Seth had been careful enough to twist his moustache so that it seemed nearly, though not quite, like a tiger moustache. But there lives in the vicinity of our village, in an old, dilapidated Mughal-style house, a Mussulman named Khan Azam Khan, who claims descent from an ancient Afghan family whose heads were noblemen and councillors in the court of the great Mughals. Khan Azam Khan, a tall, middle-aged man, is a handsome and dignified person, and he wears a tiger moustache and remains adorned with the faded remnants of a gold brocaded waistcoat, though he hasn't even a patch of land left. Some people, notably the landlord of our village and the moneylender, maliciously say that he is an impostor and all his talk about his blue blood is merely the bluff of a rascal. Others, like the priest of the temple, concede that his ancestors were certainly attached to the court of the great Mughals, but as sweepers. The landlord, the moneylender, and the priest are manifestly jealous of anyone's long ancestry, however, because they have all risen from nothing, and it is obvious from the stately ruins around Khan Azam Khan what grace was once his and his forefathers. Only Khan Azam Khan's pride is greatly in excess of his present possessions, and he is inordinately jealous of his old privileges and rather foolish and headstrong in safeguarding every sacred brick of his tottering house against vandalism. Khan Azam Khan happened to go to the moneylender's shop to pawn his wife's gold nose ring one morning, and he noticed the upturning tendency of the hair on Ramanand's upper lip, which made the moneylender's gold moustache look almost like his own tiger moustache. Since when have the lentil-eating shopkeepers become noblemen? He asked surlily, even before he had shown the nose ring to the moneylender. I don't know what you mean, Khan, Ramanand answered. You know what I mean, seed of a donkey, said the Khan. Look at the way you have turned the tips of your moustache upwards. It almost looks like my tiger moustache. Turn the tips down to the style proper to the god that you are. Fancy the airs of the traders nowadays. Oh, Khan, don't get so excited, said the moneylender, who was nothing if he was not amenable, having built up his business on the maxim that the customer is always right. I tell you, turn the tip of your moustache down if you value your life, raged Khan Azam Khan. If that is all the trouble, here you are, said Ramanand, brushing one end of his moustache with his oily hand so that it dropped like a dead fly. Come, show me the trinkets. How much do you want for them? Now that Khan Azam Khan's pride was appeased, he was like soft wax in the merchant's sure hand. His need and the need of his family for food was great, and he humbly accepted the value which the moneylender put on his wife's nose ring. But as he was departing after negotiating his business, he noticed that, though one end of the moneylender's moustache had come down at his behest, the other end was still up. A strange trick you have played on me, you swine, the Khan said. I have paid you the best value for your trinket, Khan, that any moneylender would pay in these parts, Ramanand said, especially in these days when the circars of the whole world are threatening to go off the gold standard. It has nothing to do with the trinket, said Azam Khan, but one end of your moustache is still up like my tiger moustache, though you have brought down the other to your proper god style. Bring that other end down also, so that there is no aping by your moustache of mine. Now, Khan, said the moneylender, I humbled myself because you are doing business with me. You can't expect me to become a mere worm just because you have pawned a trinket with me. If you were pledging some more expensive jewellery, I might consider obliging you a little more. Anyhow, my humble milk skimmer doesn't look a bit like your valiant tiger mustache. Bring that tip down, Khan Asam Khan roared, for the more he had looked at the moneylender's mustache, the more the still upturned tip seemed to him like an effort at an imitation of his own. Now, be sensible, Khan, the moneylender said, waving his hand with an imperturbable calm. I tell you, turn that tip down or I shall wring your neck, said the Khan. All right, the next time you come to do business with me, I shall bring that tip down, answered the moneylender cunningly. That is fair, said Chaudhary Choturam, the landlord of the village, who was sitting under the tree opposite. To be sure, some peasants chimed in sheepishly. Khan Asam Khan managed to control his murderous impulses and walked away, but he could not quell his pride, the pride of generations of his ancestors who had worn the tiger moustache as a mark of their high position. To see the symbol of his honor imitated by a moneylender, this was too much for him. He went home and fetched a necklace which had come down to his family through 7 generations, and placing it before the moneylender said, Now, will you bring that tip of your moustache down? By all means, Khan, said the moneylender, but let us see about this necklace. How much do you want for it? Any price will do, so long as you bring the tip of your moustache down, answered Azam Khan. After they had settled the business, the moneylender said, Now, Khan, I shall carry out your will. And he ceremoniously brushed the upturned tip of his moustache down. So, we are introduced to the main characters in the story, Seth Ramanand and Khan Azam Khan. These two are symbols of 2 categories of people. Seth Ramanand is a member of the newly rich class who has broken the fetters of the feudal past. He is cunning, manipulative, and has the ability to adapt himself to any situation. Though he is resentful of people who boast of a noble lineage, he hides it to work it to his advantage. On the other hand, Khan Azam Khan is indicative of the fading feudal lords who insist on clinging to the distant past, dreaming of their old glory and power. He is blinded by his pride for a past that is no longer relevant. In the transaction between Seth Ramanand and Khan, we see how the former deftly plays on the latter's sense of nobility and pride to turn things in his favor. Khan is unreasonable to the point of stupidity. He is only concerned about turning the tip of the moneylender's moustache down. When it comes to the monetary transaction between them, he becomes meek and submits to the will of the moneylender. He is so cavalier in his treatment of his family heirlooms that he says in page number 35, any price will do so long as you bring the tip of your moustache down. Thus, we can also argue that Khan is a man who has lost sight of his priorities. We come to the last part of the story. As Azam Khan was walking away, however, he noticed that the other tip of the moneylender's moustache had now gone up and stood dubiously like the upturned end of his own exalted tiger moustache. He turned on his feet and shouted, I shall kill you if you don't brush that moustache into the shape appropriate to your position as a lentil-eating moneylender. Now, Khan, come to your senses. You know it is only the illusion of a tiger's moustache, and nowhere like your brave and wonderful adornment, said the greasy moneylender. I tell you, I won't have you insulting the insignia of my order, shouted Azam Khan. You bring that tip down. I wouldn't do it, Khan, even if you pawned all the jewellery you possess to me, said the moneylender. I would rather lose all my remaining worldly possessions, my pots and pans, my clothes, even my house, than see the tip of your moustache turned up like that, spluttered Azam Khan. Acha, if you care so little for all your goods and chattels, you sell them to me, and then I shall turn that tip of my moustache down, said the moneylender. And what is more, I shall keep it flat. Now, is that a bargain? That seems fair enough, said the landlord from under the tree where he was preparing for a siesta. But what proof have I that you will keep your word, said Azam Khan. You oily lentil eaters never keep your promises. We shall draw up a deed here and now, said the moneylender, and we shall have it signed by the 5 elders of the village, who are seated under that tree. What more do you want? Now, there is no catch in that, put in the landlord. I and 4 other elders will come to court as witnesses on your behalf if the moneylender doesn't keep his moustache to the goat style ever afterwards. I shall excommunicate him from religion if he doesn't keep his word, added the priest, who had arrived on the scene on hearing the hubbub. Acha, agreed Azam Khan. And he forthwith had a deed prepared by the petition writer of the village who sat smoking his hubble-bubble under the tree. And this document, transferring all his household goods and chattels, was signed in the presence of the 5 elders of the village and sealed. And the moneylender forthwith brought both tips of his moustache down and kept them glued in the goat style appropriate to his order. Only as soon as Khan Asam Khan's back was turned, he muttered to the peasants seated nearby, "My father was a sultan." And they laughed to see the Khan give a special twist to his moustache as he walked away, maintaining the valiant uprightness of the symbol of his ancient and noble family, though he had become a pauper. So you see that Seth Ramanand's greed is matched by his slyness, his cunningness, and he cleverly exploits Khan's misplaced sense of pride to take control over everything that Khan owns. In an act of momentous stupidity, Khan pledges his entire property and possessions to the moneylender so that he would change the shape of his moustache. He is egged on by the landlord and the temple priest, who are also eager to see his downfall. Thus, at the end of the narrative, one sees Khan Asam Khan feeling vindicated that he had saved the pride of his ancestors. By clinging on to this mirage of family honor, Khan ruined himself at the altar of pride. Let's take a look at the setting of the story. The story is set in a small village in a bygone era. While people like Seth Ramanand are ready to use the new and emerging world to their own benefit, there are men like Khan Asam Khan who insist on clinging to the remnants of the past. The socio-political changes that slowly shaped modern India can be seen in the story, the emergence of the new merchant class. Feudalism is on the decline and there is a new class slowly coming to the forefront, and that is the new merchant class. And this class will be a force to reckon with in the later years. Let's take a look at the characters in the story. First is Khan Asam Khan, who is the impoverished descendant of a noble family. He is molded by the glory of his past heritage and refuses to adapt to the present. His blind pride leads him to a succession of follies, and it is even more sad that even on the verge of ruination, he doesn't comprehend his mistake. He doesn't understand the seriousness of his mistakes. He is guided not by reason but by delusions of a glorious past that has long turned to dust. Then we have Seth Ramanand, who is the face of a new merchant class. A class that is slowly exerting its power and authority. He has effectively taken control of the village as he is the moneylender and most people have owned possessions to him. He has great business acumen and is ready to take advantage of any situation that will turn favorable for him. You also see that he is ruthless in his exploitation of the poor and the needy and uses Khan's stupidity to serve his own interests. Finally, we look at the major themes. First is misplaced sense of pride. If not for Khan Asam Khan's pride, he wouldn't have been rendered a pauper. He is not guided by reason or common sense and is governed by his pride in a heritage that no longer matters. Khan's sense of entitlement when he forces the moneylender to change the shape of his moustache suggests his absolute disregard for his family's welfare. He is so consumed by pride that he is no longer able to discern his priorities in life. The next theme is that of class barriers. Mulk Raj Anand in the story explores how social cultural indicators of class and caste cloud the individual's perspective. Khan is enraged that Seth Ramanand is trying to imitate the tiger moustache, a signifier of his noble class. Though he is at the mercy of the moneylender, he is not ready to let go of this slide to his class. At the same time, Seth harbors a deep-seated resentment for Khan and people like him, members of the feudal class that once oppressed them. Therefore, the cycle of class divide is endless. I hope all of you understood the story. Thank you.